Stop scrolling. In front of you are three Lincoln pennies, 2011, 2012, and 2015, and one tiny detail could make the difference between ordinary pocket change and a highly collectible coin. Their mint marks, condition, errors, and unusual features could completely change their 2026 numismatic story. Are these hidden treasures or just common sense? Watch closely, because every coin has a different story, and the real value is hidden in the details. Let's get started. Coin number 1. Have you ever looked at an old Lincoln penny and wondered whether that dirty little coin could actually be worth far more than 1 cent? Today, we are taking a close look at a 2011 Lincoln cent in heavily circulated, dark or dirty condition, apparently showing no visible date and no obvious D mint mark. At first glance, this might look like an ordinary penny that has simply spent years in circulation. But when a coin appears to be missing important identifying details, collectors naturally start asking a much bigger question. Is this a genuine mint error, a damaged coin, or simply a coin whose details have been worn away? And that distinction is extremely important. A missing date or mint mark does not automatically make a Lincoln cent rare or valuable. In fact, environmental damage, corrosion, polishing, chemical exposure, or heavy circulation can remove details from a coin. Genuine mint errors are different because they result from an unusual event during the manufacturing process and can sometimes attract strong collector interest. So in this video, we are going to examine the possible explanations, discuss how collectors determine authenticity, explain the difference between condition and rarity, and look at what the 2026 numismatic market can realistically tell us about unusual Lincoln cents. One of the most interesting things about coin collecting is that no two coins necessarily tell the same story. Two pennies can have the same year and design, yet one may be worth face value while another can command a significant premium because of a genuine mint error, exceptional preservation, or documented rarity. That is why simply saying, "This penny has no date, so it must be rare," can be misleading. A coin that has been underground, exposed to moisture, handled for decades, or affected by chemicals may lose its original appearance. On the other hand, a genuine production error can create an unusual feature that was present when the coin left the United States Mint. The challenge for collectors is separating damage from error. That is where careful examination becomes much more important than the coin's appearance alone. The 2011 Lincoln cent is a modern United States 1-cent coin featuring the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Union Shield reverse design introduced in 2010. For a normal 2011 Lincoln cent, the date should be present on the obverse, and a D mint mark indicates production at the Denver Mint. Philadelphia cents from this period do not carry a mint mark. So if a coin appears to have no date and no D, collectors should not immediately assume that the mint intentionally omitted these details. The first question is simple. Are the details actually missing from the coin, or are they merely difficult to see? Heavy wear can gradually flatten the date. Corrosion can obscure lettering and numbers. Dirt can cover details. Cleaning can alter the surface. And damage around the date area can make a normal coin look much more unusual than it really is. That is why photographs from multiple angles, good lighting, and comparison with a normal 2011 cent are useful first steps. A completely absent date can sound exciting, but collectors have to look at the surrounding surface. If the entire obverse is heavily worn and the date area is smooth along with other design elements, ordinary circulation damage becomes a strong possibility. If the date area has unusual characteristics while nearby details remain sharp, then further investigation may be worthwhile. The same principle applies to the mint mark. A missing D on a coin that otherwise looks like a normal 2011 cent does not automatically prove an error. It may simply be a Philadelphia issue, or the mark may be obscured by wear or damage. Remember, the story is in the evidence. A valuable error coin needs more than an unusual appearance. Collectors want to know what happened whether the feature is consistent with a known minting error, and whether experts can authenticate it. Now let's talk about the dark or black appearance. Color alone is not a reliable indicator of rarity. Copper-based Lincoln cents can develop different colors and surfaces as they age or react with their environment. A dark coin may have accumulated dirt or experienced environmental exposure. Some surfaces can also be altered by chemicals or improper cleaning. For that reason, collectors generally should be cautious about aggressively cleaning a potentially interesting coin. Cleaning can permanently change the surface and may reduce collector appeal. Instead, document the coin as you found it. Take clear photographs of the front, back, edge, date area, mint mark area, and any unusual features. If the coin seems genuinely unusual, professional evaluation is safer than trying to transform its appearance at home. Another important term in the market is MS, meaning mint state. A coin described as MS has not received that designation simply because someone thinks it looks nice. Professional grading involves examining the coin's condition and assigning a grade according to established standards. This creates a major problem with the idea that a heavily dirty or circulated 2011 penny can automatically be called MS. If a coin has significant circulation, wear, or environmental damage, an MS grade may not be appropriate. And there is another important point. Condition does not create a mint error. A coin can be high grade and ordinary. A coin can also be heavily circulated and still have an authentic major mint error. Rarity and condition are separate parts of the valuation equation. So what is this 2011 penny worth in 2026? The honest answer is that there is no reliable single value based only on the description 2011 penny, no visible date, no demint mark, black and dirty. A normal circulated 2011 Lincoln cent is generally a common modern coin and is not automatically a high-value collectible. A genuinely unusual and authenticated mint error can be a completely different story. The strongest evidence for a high value would be a documented auction result involving a comparable coin, especially one that has been authenticated and professionally graded. This is why collectors should be careful with sensational claims, such as one penny sold for thousands, so every similar penny is worth thousands. That conclusion does not follow. Every coin is different. A coin that looks similar in a photograph may have a completely different error, grade, surface, provenance, or authenticity. And when researching auction prices, always check the actual auction record rather than relying on a social media headline or an online asking price. An asking price is simply what someone hopes to receive. A completed sale is much stronger evidence because it shows what a buyer actually paid. If you believe your 2011 cent has a genuine mint error, authentication can make a major difference. Professional grading companies and experienced numismatists can examine unusual coins and determine whether a feature is consistent with a minting error or, more likely, the result of damage. For a potentially valuable coin, authentication is particularly important before making a major valuation claim. Collectors may examine the coin's weight, diameter, composition, strike characteristics, surface texture, design details, and the exact location and appearance of the suspected error. Even small differences can matter. For example, a missing design element caused by a minting problem is fundamentally different from a design element that disappeared because the coin was scratched, worn, corroded, or chemically altered after leaving the mint. You may see claims online that a particular coin was sold only one time, or that one example achieved a huge auction price. That can certainly be interesting, but it should also make you investigate further. Was the sale conducted by a recognized auction company? Was the coin professionally authenticated? What was the exact grade? What was the exact error? Was the price the hammer price, or did it include the buyer's premium? Was the coin actually a 2011 cent, or was the year misidentified? These questions can completely change the interpretation of a reported value. A unique coin can sometimes have a unique auction history, but uniqueness should be demonstrated rather than assumed. If you have a 2011 Lincoln cent that appears to have no date, start with the basics. Use bright, indirect lighting and examine the obverse carefully. Look for traces of the date rather than immediately assuming it is completely absent. Then inspect the area where the mint mark would normally appear. Check the reverse for unusual doubling, missing details, die characteristics, or other features. Look at the edge as well. Most importantly, compare the coin with a normal 2011 Lincoln cent. Photography can also help. Take a straight-on photograph of both sides and close-ups of the unusual areas. Do not rely on one blurry image to establish rarity. And if the coin appears potentially valuable, avoid abrasive cleaning. The original surface is part of the coin's history. So could a 2011 Lincoln penny with a dark appearance, apparently missing its date and without an obvious D mint mark be valuable. Possibly, but only if the unusual characteristics can be explained by a genuine collectible variety or mint error. If the missing details are simply the result of wear, corrosion, environmental damage, or other post-mint alteration, the coin may have little premium value. If an authentic and significant mint error is discovered, however, the situation can change dramatically. That is the fascinating part of numismatics. A coin's value is not determined by age alone. It is determined by a combination of rarity, authenticity, condition, demand, documented sales, and the exact characteristics of that individual specimen. Coin number 2. Could this ordinary-looking 2015 Lincoln penny be worth more than 1 cent in the 2026 coin market? At first glance, this copper-colored 1-cent coin may look like another common penny that has passed through thousands of hands. But collectors know that sometimes the smallest details can completely change the story of a coin. Today we are examining a 2015 Lincoln cent, including the coin shown here, its visible date, mint mark question, condition, possible errors, mint state value, and what collectors should actually look for before believing a huge online price claim. And there is one detail we need to clarify immediately. In the photograph, the obverse clearly appears to show the date 2015. So this is not a confirmed, no-date Lincoln penny. Instead, the more interesting question is whether the absence of a mint mark is normal for this coin, or whether there is another unusual feature that could make the individual piece collectible. Because every coin has a different story. Looking closely at the first image, we can see the reverse of a Lincoln cent. The coin displays the familiar 1-cent denomination, the Union Shield design, EPLURBUSUNUM, and United States of America. The second photograph shows the obverse. Lincoln's portrait is visible, along with Liberty, In God We Trust, and most importantly, the date 2015. That visible date changes how we should approach the valuation. A coin does not become rare simply because somebody cannot read the date. If a date has disappeared because of circulation, corrosion, environmental exposure, or damage, that is very different from a genuine mint error. The same principle applies to the mint mark. One of the biggest misunderstandings surrounding modern Lincoln cents is the belief that every penny must have a mint mark. That is not the case. For U.S. coins, the absence of a mint mark can indicate production at the Philadelphia Mint, depending on the year and denomination. Therefore, if your 2015 Lincoln cent has no D, that feature alone does not establish a rare minting error. A collector needs to determine exactly where the coin was produced and whether its characteristics match a normal Philadelphia issue. This is why a close-up photograph of the area near the date is so important. The correct question is not simply, where is the D? The better question is, should this particular 2015 cent have a D mint mark in the first place? That one question can prevent a lot of confusion. Now we reach the part everybody wants to know. What is a 2015 Lincoln penny worth in 2026? For an ordinary circulated example, the answer is generally very close to face value. That might sound disappointing, but it is actually useful information. The existence of a 2015 date does not automatically create a rare coin. Millions of modern Lincoln cents were produced, so collectors generally need something additional to create a substantial premium. That something could include a recognized variety, a major mint error, an exceptional grade, or another documented characteristic. A coin that is simply old-looking is not necessarily old, and a coin that looks unusual is not necessarily rare. The market rewards verified scarcity, not just unusual appearance. Now let's discuss the term MS, because this is where many online coin value videos become confusing. MS stands for mint state. A mint state coin is generally a coin that has not circulated in the traditional sense and retains the characteristics expected of an uncirculated example. The numerical grade matters too. An MS-60 and an MS-65 are not considered equivalent in the marketplace. At higher grades, small differences in marks, luster, strike, and preservation can affect collector demand. But remember something very important. A high grade does not automatically make a common coin extremely valuable. Rarity and condition work together. A common coin in superb condition may have a premium, while an ordinary circulated coin may remain worth very little. That is why you should never take an MS auction price for a completely different specimen and assume it represents the value of your circulated penny. This is where the story gets much more interesting. Modern Lincoln cents can occasionally display mint errors and varieties. Collectors may investigate possibilities such as striking abnormalities, double design elements, off-center strikes, broad strikes, clips, wrong planchet errors, or other recognized mint-produced abnormalities. But there is a major difference between a genuine mint error and damage that happened after the coin entered circulation. For example, a scratch is not automatically a mint error. A dark surface is not automatically an error. A missing detail caused by wear is not automatically an error. And an absent mint mark is not automatically an error. The strongest discoveries are those where the unusual feature can be connected to the manufacturing process and supported by specialist knowledge or professional authentication. The coin in the photographs has a darker copper-colored appearance. That is worth noticing, but color alone does not establish rarity. Lincoln cents can show different shades because of their surfaces, storage conditions, handling, environmental exposure, and composition. Collectors should be particularly careful about cleaning. If you think you have an unusual coin, aggressive polishing or chemical treatment can permanently change the surface. Instead, photograph the coin exactly as found. Take pictures under good lighting. Capture both sides. Photograph the edge. Then take close-ups of the date, mint mark area, lettering, and any suspected error. Sometimes what looks like a major discovery in a low-quality photograph turns out to be ordinary wear when viewed clearly. And sometimes the opposite happens. A tiny feature that looks insignificant can become very interesting after careful examination. Now let's talk about auction values. This is where we need to be extremely careful with the word sold. There is a huge difference between a coin being advertised online for $500 and a coin actually selling for $500 at a documented auction. An asking price is not proof of market value. A completed auction sale is much stronger evidence. And even a genuine sale has to be compared correctly. You need to know the exact year, the exact mint, the exact era or variety, the professional grade, if any, the coin's certification number when applicable, and the final auction terms. So if you see a headline claiming that a 2015 Lincoln penny sold for an enormous amount, don't immediately assume your coin is worth the same amount. It could be a completely different era. It could have an exceptional grade. It could be a wrong planchet coin. Or it could be a sensationalized listing rather than a completed sale. The details matter. You may also hear the phrase, "This coin sold only one time." That sounds dramatic. But a one-time auction record does not automatically mean that every similar coin is worth the same amount. If only one example is documented, that can make price comparisons especially difficult. A unique or extremely scarce era may have very limited market data. In that situation, collectors should avoid presenting a single historical sale as a guaranteed 2026 value. Instead, describe it accurately as a documented historical auction result, if the sale can actually be verified. That distinction makes a coin video more trustworthy. And trust is extremely important when discussing valuable coins. A realistic valuation is much more useful than a giant number with no evidence behind it. If you have a 2015 Lincoln cent at home, start with the date. Make sure the final two digits really are 15. Next, examine the mint mark area. If there is no D, remember that a Philadelphia 2015 cent can normally lack a mint mark. Then inspect the coin for something genuinely unusual. Look for strong doubling characteristics rather than simple shadows or flattened lettering. Check whether the strike is centered. Look around the edge for unusual metal characteristics. Examine the reverse as carefully as the obverse. And compare your coin with photographs of authenticated examples. If you believe the coin has a major mint error, professional authentication is the safest way to establish whether the feature is genuine. This is perhaps the most important lesson for new collectors. Every coin is different. Two 2015 Lincoln cents can look almost identical at first. One might be an ordinary circulated Philadelphia cent. Another might have an interesting variety. A third could have a legitimate mint error. A fourth might simply have postmint damage that makes it look unusual. That is why coin collecting is not just about the date. It is about studying the individual specimen. The surface tells one part of the story. The strike tells another. The mint mark situation provides another clue. The condition provides another. And documented market history helps complete the picture. So let's bring everything together. For the 2015 Lincoln cent shown in these photographs, the visible date means we should not label it a confirmed no-date coin. If there is no D mint mark, that alone does not establish rarity because the absence of a mint mark can be normal for a Philadelphia issue. In ordinary circulated condition, a standard 2015 cent generally does not become a high-dollar coin simply because it is dark, dirty, or lacks a D. A higher value would require something more substantial. That could be an authenticated mint error, a recognized variety, an exceptional mint state grade, or another feature supported by credible numismatic evidence. So don't let an exciting internet price convince you that every 2015 penny is a hidden fortune. At the same time, don't ignore an unusual coin without examining it. The right approach is somewhere in the middle. Look closely, research carefully, compare accurately, authenticate when necessary. Coin number 3. What if a small 2012 Lincoln penny sitting in an old coin jar could have a story that is far more interesting than its 1 cent face value? Today, we are taking a detailed look at the 2012 Lincoln cent, focusing on coins that appear to have no visible mint mark, coins with difficult-to-read dates, circulated examples, and the possibility of genuine mint errors that collectors search for in the 2026 numismatic market. But there is an important point before we begin. A 2012 penny with no mint mark is not automatically rare. For 2012 Lincoln cents, Philadelphia-produced examples normally do not carry a mint mark, while Denver examples normally carry a D. And if the date appears to be missing, that does not automatically mean the mint created a rare no-date error. The date could be obscured by wear, corrosion, environmental damage, or other post-mint effects. So today, we are not simply chasing a huge dollar figure. We are investigating what actually makes a 2012 penny valuable. Because every coin is different, and every coin can tell a different story. The 2012 Lincoln cent belongs to the modern era of American coinage and carries the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse. The reverse features the Union Shield design introduced for Lincoln cents in 2010. That means the 2012 penny is part of a relatively recent chapter in the long history of the Lincoln cent. At first glance, a circulated 2012 penny may not look particularly exciting. It may have scratches, dark areas, discoloration, small marks, or ordinary signs of circulation. But collectors do not evaluate a coin only by looking at its age. They examine the date, mint mark, condition, strike, surfaces, varieties, and possible errors. That is why a coin that looks ordinary at first can deserve a closer examination. However, closer examination does not mean automatically assigning a high value. The evidence has to come first. One of the most important things to understand about a 2012 Lincoln penny with no mint mark is that the missing letter may be completely normal. Philadelphia cents generally do not have a mint mark. Denver cents from this period normally display a D. Therefore, finding a 2012 cent without a D does not prove that the coin is an error. In fact, the absence of the D can be an ordinary characteristic of a Philadelphia issue. This is an important distinction because many online coin videos describe every missing mint mark as rare. That is not how professional numismatics works. A genuine mint error requires evidence that something unusual happened during the manufacturing process. A normal Philadelphia coin without a mint mark is simply doing what it was supposed to do. So when examining your 2012 penny, first determine whether you are looking at a normal Philadelphia issue. Only after that should you investigate other unusual characteristics. Now let's discuss the phrase 2012 penny with no date. There is an obvious contradiction here. If the date cannot be seen, how can we confidently identify the coin as a 2012 cent? That is why collectors should be careful with descriptions of apparently dateless coins. If the coin is heavily worn, the date can become difficult or impossible to read. Environmental exposure can also affect the surface. Corrosion may obscure design elements. Damage can flatten or remove portions of the lettering and numbers. None of these conditions automatically creates a valuable mint error. A genuine mint-produced problem has to be distinguished from damage that occurred after the coin entered circulation. So if you have a 2012 cent where the date is weak, look carefully at the surrounding design. Are Lincoln's portrait details also heavily worn? Is Liberty weak? Are the letters around the coin affected in a similar way? If many details have disappeared together, ordinary wear or environmental damage may be the simplest explanation. You described the coin as being in good condition, and that distinction matters when discussing value. A circulated coin with visible wear generally does not have the same market value as an exceptional mint state specimen. Collectors use standardized grading systems to describe condition. The term MS, or mint state, is generally reserved for coins that have not received normal circulation, wear, and meet the standards for an uncirculated grade. An MS-60 is not the same thing as MS-65. Higher grades can require better preservation, stronger eye appeal, fewer marks, and other desirable characteristics. But here is the key point. A high grade does not automatically turn a common 2012 penny into a rare coin. Condition and rarity are separate factors. A common coin in a high grade can be collectible. A genuinely rare error can also be valuable, even when it is not in perfect condition. The exact combination is what matters. So what should collectors actually look for? The answer is not simply a missing D. Look for characteristics that may indicate a recognized variety or genuine mint error. Possible areas of investigation include unusual doubling, off-center strikes, clips, broad strikes, wrong planchet errors, or other abnormalities that can be connected to the minting process. But photographs can be deceptive. A shadow beside a letter may look like doubling. A scratch may look like a missing design element. A damaged rim may look like an off-center strike. A dark surface may look mysterious, even though it is simply environmental damage. This is why experienced collectors compare suspected errors with known examples. The strongest evidence comes from a feature that makes sense mechanically and is consistent with an actual minting error. If a coin has a potentially significant error, professional authentication can provide much stronger evidence than an online opinion. Now let's move to the part that attracts the most attention. What is a 2012 Lincoln penny worth in 2026? There is no single universal value. A normal circulated 2012 Lincoln cent is generally a common modern coin and is not automatically a high-dollar collectible. A Philadelphia example without a mint mark can be perfectly normal. A circulated coin with ordinary wear should not be valued using the price of a completely different mint state or error specimen. This is where auction research becomes essential. When looking at a reported sale, identify the exact coin that's sold. Check the date. Check the mint. Check the grade. Check whether the coin had a certified error. Check the auction company. And check whether the number represents an actual completed sale rather than an online asking price. A seller can list a penny for $10,000. That does not mean somebody paid $10,000 for it. Sold prices are much more meaningful than asking prices. You may also come across claims that a particular 2012 penny was sold only one time for a surprisingly high amount. That kind of claim needs context. If there is only one documented sale for a specific unusual specimen, that sale may be interesting historical evidence. But it should not automatically be presented as the guaranteed value of every similar coin. The coin might have been professionally graded. It could have had a rare mint error. It might have been an unusually high-grade specimen. Or it could have possessed a characteristic that ordinary 2012 cents do not have. One auction result does not magically transfer that value to every penny with the same date. This is especially important when discussing the 2026 market. Market prices can change. Collector demand can change. And the exact characteristics of each specimen can produce very different results. That is why responsible coin research always separates documented sales from speculation. If you have a 2012 Lincoln cent in your collection, begin with the simplest inspection. First, examine the date under good lighting. Next, look directly below the date area for the mint mark. If there is no D, remember that a Philadelphia issue can normally have no mint mark. Then inspect both sides of the coin. Look at the rim. Look at Lincoln's portrait. Look closely at the lettering. Examine the Union shield. Check the edge for anything unusual. If you suspect doubling, compare the suspected feature with verified examples rather than relying on a blurry photograph. And if the coin appears valuable, avoid harsh cleaning. Cleaning can permanently alter the surface and may hurt collector appeal. Photograph the coin as it is. A clear record of the original condition can be much more useful than a polished appearance. This is the part of coin collecting that makes these little pieces of metal so fascinating. Every 2012 penny is not identical from a collector's perspective. One may be an ordinary Philadelphia cent. Another may have circulation damage. Another may have an interesting die characteristic. Another could potentially contain a genuine mint error. And another might be an exceptionally preserved mint state coin. They can share the same date while having completely different stories. That is why experienced collectors do not look at a coin and immediately say, "This is worth hundreds." They ask questions. Where was it made? What condition is it in? What happened to the surface? Is the unusual feature original? Is it a recognized variety? Has a comparable example actually sold? Can the claimed auction record be verified? Those questions are what separate an exciting possibility from a reliable valuation. So what should you remember about the 2012 Lincoln penny in 2026? A normal circulated 2012 cent is generally not a high-dollar coin simply because it has no D mint mark. A missing mint mark can be normal for a Philadelphia-produced example. A difficult-to-read or apparently missing date does not automatically establish a rare mint error. A high MS grade can increase collector interest, but the exact grade and market demand matter. And a major authenticated mint error can place a completely different value category on an individual specimen. That is why there is no honest one-size-fits-all price for every 2012 penny. The value belongs to the specific coin. The strongest evidence comes from authenticated specimens and documented completed auction sales. Not rumors, not screenshots of asking prices, not sensational headlines, and not a giant number copied from a completely different era coin. So the next time you find a 2012 Lincoln penny, don't dismiss it immediately. Turn it over. Look at the date. Check the mint mark area. Study the surfaces. Inspect the strike. And compare unusual features with verified examples. Maybe you have an ordinary 1-cent coin. Maybe you have a high-grade example. Maybe there is an interesting variety hiding in plain sight. Or perhaps the coin simply has a story created by years of circulation. Whatever the answer is, the investigation itself is what makes collecting exciting. Every coin is different, every surface has a history, and sometimes one tiny detail can completely change the conversation about value. If you enjoy Lincoln penny values, rare coin discoveries, mint state examples, era coins, auction results, and 2026 numismatic market updates, subscribe for the next investigation.